Well, welcome back again, Ray.
Hi, Jeff. So good to see you again.
Yes, we've had two really great episodes with you. And for the benefit of those who heard the episodes, but still need a quick recap to keep the momentum going, and for those who are actually coming in now at episode 3, can you just quickly remind us of what we covered, Ray, in our first 2 episodes?
Yes, thank you, Jeff. The most key points we covered in episode 1 was a map of 3 key brain networks. One does our focused attention and decision-making. Another one does strategy making, predictions, and inner speech, storytelling. And the third one does intuition, insights, ahas, and social connectedness. So we covered all of that.
Okay.
In episode 2, we went into brain network switching a little bit more. And we actually did an exercise called the Mindful Minute. That's great brain hygiene, calms the nervous system down, reduces stress, and gives you the experience of what brain network switching feels like and how you feel after you do it. That's pretty much what we did.
Yeah, and that was so helpful to actually go through that exercise. I encourage people to go back to episode 2 and do it again or do it for the first time. We also, I know you made a point of talking about the 3 important aspects of the Grand Connection program, which tie into this, which are connect, create, and collaborate. Ray, something that we haven't talked about that I think would be helpful for our viewers and listeners would be if you could just tell us a little bit about how you're practicing and teaching the neuroscience of connection has helped you personally.
Well, one of the ways currently it has helped me is that I think it's important to practice what you preach. So teaching inspires me to keep practicing. The change in my life that it's done is huge. I experienced some very deep traumas early in life that left me feeling anxious and slightly depressed. And then at 40, I had another big accident and a divorce. So I was physically, emotionally, and mentally traumatized. And that led me on that journey where you see all my certifications of how do I heal myself. That led me into a deep passion for helping others have a better experience of life, because that's what I wanted for myself. So at 40, I was diagnosed after a serious car accident with clinical depression. So I knew what it's like to be depressed. And also a lifelong inner speech that always felt I could do better no matter how well I'd done. Self-judgment and criticism.
Yeah.
And about 2 years ago, fast forward, to 2 years ago, after practicing these neurostrategies, which are way more than we covered in episode 1 and 2, you see, much more support and more information, I got to a place where I would normally judge myself, and I realized I didn't. And from that day on, I don't judge myself. I notice when I've done something, but I don't have that dark, judgmental, critical voice in my head. It's gone. The other thing I've noticed in the past 2 years in particular, keep in mind I've been practicing this for a while, is I don't experience stress for more than a few seconds or anxiety. I know how to brain network switch. I'm not repressing emotions. I'm using my neurology in a particular way that releases neurotransmitters into my bloodstream that antidote stress. It's exciting to have that at your fingertips to use.
It's remarkable. I'm sure that it is so calming to have to not deal with those sorts of things. Thank you so much for sharing that, Ray. And what you've shared about having an accident, about the divorce, about the traumas that you experienced in your childhood, literally millions of people, I'm sure, can relate to that in one way or another. And to hear how much learning about neuroscience and putting into practice the things that you've learned, which we're going to talk a little bit about here again with the self-mastery program, has to be motivating and encouraging. So again, thank you for talking about this, about that. When we're looking at neuroscience, which you just alluded to, what does that tell us, Ray, about real and lasting change?
Science teaches us that real and lasting change happens truly in 90-day increments. It takes 90 days to grow a neuron that holds a new habit. There was a 30-year study done at Scranton University in Pennsylvania of how to create and hold a new habit. 30 years. And what they came up with was there's 5 stages of change. One is having a reason to change. You get psyched. Another one is you prepare for change. Then you finally jump into doing something differently. You have to have those first 2 steps first. Then you have to find a way to manage slips when you fall off of the new habit or change you want. And then you have to find a way to persist in the change. So in our self-mastery program, we weave in those 5 stages of change in a supportive system and continuing to practice. That's 90 days of daily practice. So the neurons grow that holds the change.
So you probably literally see changes in the brain after you start to implement this, yes. Or I should say after 90 days.
Yes, you do. And there's another way to create change called memory reconsolidation, but that is a class in itself. We won't teach that in itself. We teach that in the self-mastery program for sure.
Okay. So what are some of the things that people would notice if they spend the 90 days or more practicing some of these tools that you teach them?
Yes, definitely less stress, better focus, calmer, more confident, interestingly enough, less reactivity, more capacity to respond, better communication, and confidence in building rapport.
Wow, I think any one of those would make it worthwhile. I really do. Now, there are people who individually need to change in better ways, such as has happened to you, become calmer, less critical of themselves. But sometimes we find that there are coaches like you and leaders of organizations who also can use these principles with the individuals they work with or with the teams they work with. How do they or could they use these kinds of principles?
When you have truly embodied these practices so that you really are calmer, you become a tuning fork when you enter a conversation, if that makes sense.
That's interesting.
In other words, the other person can feel it. They might not be thinking about it, but they feel it. Clients often tell me, Ray, whenever I have a conversation with you, I always feel calmer.
Wow.
So we get into how to do that in over the course of a year in the self-mastery course. And so that's one thing. We also learn strategies like the mindful minute, like stretching and yawning, or taking a mindful breath that coaches can use with their clients and leaders can use with their groups. I taught a coach that taught kids that worked at a Grammy level of musical production, and they do the mindful minute behind stage before they go out on stage.
Terrific.
Those kind of things.
Terrific. So let's now drill down a little bit deeper into the self-mastery program.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit more about what the self-mastery program is and what do people learn who take the self-mastery program. I think that'd be really important to speak about now.
Mm-hmm. We didn't break anything. We have formulated the self-mastery program into 4 90-day modules, respecting change and growing those neurons that hold change. So in the first module, we cover the neurological map, brain network switching, basics of communicating with one another, utilizing brain network switching. So everyone gets a real life experience of what that's like and starts to develop a practice of doing this. In Module 2, we double down on everything we have learned in Module 1. In particular, we work on neurological processes that turn procrastination into inspired action and creativity and how to create, like creating a project or creating anything. There's a formula for it that we teach. People come out of Module 2 with a sense of competency because they've now had 2 90-day segments of building a new habit. In Modules 3 and 4, we focus on rapport, connecting, and communication. So Module 3 is we cover 12 essential principles neurologically researched for effective communication. So it takes a while to get that down. And in Module 4, we get creative. We go into creative flow. We learn to communicate in that flow and to explore how we're saying what we're saying. So most of us, without training, we're involved in the content of the message we want to get. I'm going to make this point and this point and this point. In Module 4, we're still making our points, but we're working on how. For instance, notice how I emphasize the word how. We work on things like that. Yes. I would say we play with things like that.
Yeah, the how the messages are delivered becomes, I guess, a very important factor. So what we're talking about here is a program, the self-mastery program, that is about a year long. It's 90 days, but 4 modules. Now, as I think about it, and some of the things you've said just in this episode, I can see where there are many different kinds of people who could benefit from it. From your experience, though, who would you say is a great fit for the self-mastery program?
I would say coaches, leaders, business owners, parents.
Parents.
Yes. In particular, creatives. Anyone who wants to communicate better and wants more growth in themselves.
Okay, and I'm thinking about some of what you've been saying that relates to the benefits of the program.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, since you and I are both members of Grand Connection, a great emphasis is placed on connecting, creating, and collaborating.
Yes.
How does what you're doing with the self-mastery program tie back into those focuses that the Grand Connection has?
Yes. They beautifully match one another. As when we learn how to connect better, remember that's that deeper network, the social connectedness.
Yeah.
And when we learn the art and science of connection to the point where we feel a sense of competency, you see. So connection leads to creativity, and understanding the map, the neurological map. We understand that there's an aspect to ourselves that wants to seek things that are pleasurable, that actually likes being curious and playful. So things aren't so serious, and the benefits of that. So that leads to creativity. So connection leads to creation, leads to better collaboration. And when you look at the arc of the self-mastery course, that's actually what we're doing. We're teaching the art and science of connection. We're teaching the art and science of creation. We're teaching the art and science of collaboration. The exercises we do in Module 3 and 4 are highly collaborative. And so our values match. This is one of the reasons I love Grand Connections, is it matches my values. A good example, Jeff, is you're and my coming together to do these episodes. We didn't start with a pitch. We started with curiosity and connection, and here we are. We've done three episodes now, and I enjoyed every single one.
Thank you. And this is really the essence of what connecting, creating, and collaborating is about, certainly as demonstrated by the Grand Connection. But even outside of the Grand Connection, it's very hard to jump into some sort of a good connection when you don't really get to know somebody just a little bit. And it gets even harder to collaborate until they and you know each other even more so. And so this program, this self-mastery program, is providing us who are interested in connecting and collaborating and creating, it's providing us with some good groundwork and a foundation in order to be able to do that. Is that correct?
I agree. Yes, it is correct. And I'll say it again. It's like an art form in one way. And definitely there's a science that underlays it all. That is the foundation for it.
Yeah.
What I've noticed is when people really have the map down as a reference, I like to think of a map as something we can reference that helps us navigate where we want to go. And so I'm obviously sold on neuroscience. It's changed my life. And the way I communicate is constantly being refined and improved. There's no end to it.
Wonderful. Especially when you talk about where you've come from to be where you are now. It's just must be so self-satisfying that you've been able to do this and has to create such positive feelings within you and for the people who are around you. I want to have you get a little bit practical again here.
Okay.
What would be a first step for our listeners that they could take right now to begin their journey of self-mastery in the way that we've focused on self-mastery, the way we've defined it here? What would be a good first step that they could take when they left this episode?
A good first step when you leave this episode is to take 1 minute, just 1 minute, stretch and yawn 3 times, do some form of pleasurable self-soothing. Like I'm rubbing, if you can't see me, I'm rubbing my shoulders a little bit, very gently, slowing everything down until we get a genuine pause in all of the thinking that's going on. If that's difficult to do, just do more stretches and yawns. Arrive at a moment of aware stillness, being aware for just a moment that we're still, and then asking for something that we value. And then savor that, just like you'd savor a good flavor in your mouth. Just that.
And I like that, something that you value, to savor it. I think that's sort of like the icing on the cake of the whole process, of the mindful minute process.
Yes.
Well, now I think it's time for you to let everybody know, how can they find out more about you, Ray, and about the Neuroscience of Connection Self-Mastery Program?
Yes. Well, this is a collaboration with Grand Connections. So you can go to Grand Connections and ask there. There will be a document posted in the notes for our episodes that you can access, that gives you links to connecting with Grand Connections, or to have a connection with me. So Grand Connections is your portal for all of this. And we do have a document you can get. It will be in the links, that gives a very detailed description of the course, as well as additional links where you can connect with Grand Connections. Or me.
For you, in fact. Well, thank you, Ray. We will definitely provide listeners and viewers with more information. It's been wonderful speaking with you, getting to learn more about you, about the Neuroscience of Connection, about the Self-Mastery Program in these 3 episodes. And I certainly hope that we'll get to talk to each other and work with each other in the future.
Oh, I do too, Jeff. This has been a delight. Thank you so much for everything you.
Thank you for joining us on the Grand Connection podcast. If this episode sparked something for you, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend looking for a community to support their growth. Before we sign off, today is a grand day to reach out to someone in your own network and reconnect. You never know where one conversation can lead.